A young woman, clad in white linen, kneels before an altar, her eyes wide with devotion. But as the high priest approaches, his smile hides something sinister. Whispers echo through the halls, whispers of betrayal, of power twisted into perversion. What unholy acts were committed in the name of the gods? Tonight, we uncover the dark underbelly of ancient Egypt's sacred sanctuaries. Ancient Egypt, a civilization that spanned over 3 millennia, from around 3100 BCE to 30 BCE, when Cleopatra's reign ended and Rome took control. This was a land ruled by pharaohs who were seen as living gods, where the Nile River was the lifeblood, flooding annually to bring fertility to the desert sands. Pyramids pierced the sky, obelisks stood as tributes to the sun god Ra, and temples were the epicenters of religious life. Massive complexes like Karnak and Luxor, where priests mediated between mortals and the divine. In this world, religion wasn't just belief, it was the fabric of society. The Egyptians worshipped a pantheon of gods: Osiris, the lord of the afterlife; Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood; Anubis, the jackal-headed embalmer, and many more. Temples were not mere places of worship. They were economic powerhouses, owning vast lands, employing thousands, and controlling immense wealth from offerings and taxes. Priests, shaved bald and clad in pure white linen to symbolize purity, were the elite class, second only to the pharaoh. They performed daily rituals to ensure the gods' favor, waking the deities with chants, offering food and drink, and conducting festivals that could last days. But within these hallowed halls lurked a hierarchy of power. High priests, often appointed by the pharaoh, wielded influence that rivaled kings. Lower priests handled mundane tasks, while specialized roles existed for musicians, scribes, and, crucially, temple virgins. These women, dedicated to the gods from a young age, were known as gods' wives or divine adoratrices in some cults, particularly that of Amun in Thebes. They were sworn to celibacy, their purity a conduit for divine energy. In theory, they lived lives of honor, performing dances, songs, and rituals to appease the gods. Yet history whispers of a darker side, where the veil of sanctity hid exploitation and abuse. Egypt's society was rigidly stratified: slaves at the bottom, farmers and artisans in the middle, nobles and priests at the top. Women, while having more rights than in many ancient cultures, able to own property and divorce, were still bound by patriarchal norms, especially in religious roles. Temple virgins were often from noble families, offered as a prestige to the gods, but once inside the temple walls, they were isolated from the outside world, their fates in the hands of the priesthood. As we delve deeper, remember that ancient Egypt wasn't all golden masks and eternal life. It was a place where power corrupted, and the gods' names were invoked to justify the unimaginable. Let's meet one such virgin, whose story illuminates the shadows. Her name was Nefertari, not the famous queen, but a girl from a modest noble family in Thebes around 1300 BCE, during the New Kingdom era under Pharaoh Ramses II. Born under an auspicious star, as her parents believed, Nefertari grew up in a sun-baked villa along the Nile's east bank. Her days were filled with the simple joys of childhood, playing with clay dolls by the river, learning to weave linen with her mother, and listening to her father's tales of the gods' exploits. Nefertari was a bright-eyed girl of 12 when she was chosen. Her family, devout followers of Amun, saw it as the highest honor. "You will serve the Great One," her mother whispered, braiding her hair with lotus flowers. "Your purity will bring blessings to us all." Nefertari, innocent and eager, dreamed of the temple as a paradise, grand halls echoing with music, where she would dance for the gods and feel their presence. Upon entering the temple of Amun at Karnak, her life transformed, but at first it seemed magical. She lived in quarters with other virgins, young women from across the land, all sworn to chastity. Mornings began with ablutions in sacred pools, their bodies anointed with oils scented like myrrh and frankincense. They learned hymns, the sacred dances that mimicked the movements of the Nile or the flight of birds sacred to Horus. Nefertari excelled at the sistrum, a rattle-like instrument that invoked Hathor's joy. Friendships formed in those early days. There was Merit, a witty girl from Memphis, who shared secrets under the moonlight, and Tia, the quiet one who painted beautiful murals on papyrus. They giggled about the stern priests, imitated their chants, and dreamed of the festivals where they would perform before crowds. Nefertari's favorite ritual was the Opet festival, when Amun's statue was carried in procession, and the virgins led the way with flowers and songs. She felt important, chosen, alive with purpose. Life wasn't without hardships. Strict diets of bread, dates, and fish, long hours of study in hieroglyphs and theology, isolation from family, seeing them only on rare visits. But Nefertari thrived, her devotion genuine. She believed in the gods' protection, in the priests as their earthly guardians. Little did she know, the temple's grandeur masked a web of control, where innocence like hers was a commodity. It started subtly, like a shadow lengthening at dusk. Nefertari noticed how the high priest, a man named Ptahhotep, lingered his gaze during rituals. He was in his 40s, bald and adorned with gold amulets, his voice commanding respect. At first, it was compliments. "Your dance pleases Amun greatly, child." She blushed, taking it as praise. Then came the private lessons. "To deepen your connection to the divine," he said, summoning her to his chambers after evening prayers. The room was opulent walls painted with scenes of gods coupling with mortals, incense burning thickly. He taught her advanced chants, but his hand would brush her arm, his eyes tracing her form. Nefertari felt uneasy, but dismissed it. He was holy, after all. Whispers among the older virgins hinted at more. Merit confided one night, "Be careful with Ptahhotep. He interprets the god's will loosely." Nefertari laughed it off, but doubt crept in. During a minor festival, she saw him pull Tia aside, her friend's face pale upon return. Tia wouldn't speak of it, only saying, "The gods demand sacrifices we don't understand." The layers peeled back further when Nefertari was assigned to the inner sanctum, where only select virgins served. Here, rituals involved sacred unions, euphemisms for acts that blurred devotion and desire. Ptahhotep explained, "In ancient times, priestesses embodied the goddess, uniting with the priest as God incarnate to ensure fertility." But Nefertari sensed the twist. These weren't consensual or symbolic. One evening, after a ritual bath, he cornered her. "The gods have chosen you," he murmured, his breath hot. His touch was insistent, probing. She froze, her mind screaming denial. It wasn't rape, not yet, but coercion wrapped in divine mandate. "Resist, and you defy Amun," he warned. Tears streamed as she complied with a forced embrace, her virginity intact, but her spirit cracked. The horror deepened with isolation. Virgins who resisted were labeled impure, ostracized, or worse, accused of blasphemy, leading to banishment or mysterious disappearances. Nefertari learned of hidden chambers where purification rites occurred, involving multiple priests. Drugs from lotus and mandrake dulled senses, making victims pliable. The temple's wealth funded silence, families bribed, records altered. Layer by layer, Nefertari saw the system. Priests exploiting power imbalances, using religion to justify lust. It wasn't just Ptahhotep, lower priests emulated him, creating a culture of abuse. Her normal life shattered, replaced by fear and shame. The climax came during the Heb-Sed festival, a jubilee for the pharaoh's renewal, but in the temple, it devolved into depravity. Nefertari, now 15, was selected for the Great Union, a ritual supposedly honoring Isis and Osiris. Drugged with wine laced with hallucinogens, she was led to a subterranean chamber, lit by flickering lamps casting grotesque shadows. There, Ptahhotep and 3 other high priests awaited, masked as gods, one as Anubis, another as Set, the god of chaos. "You are the vessel," Ptahhotep intoned, his voice echoing. What followed was a nightmare of violation. They took turns, chanting invocations as they assaulted her, claiming it channeled divine energy. Her cries were muffled by cloths, her struggles futile against their strength. The shocking truth, this wasn't isolated. Historical papyri, though censored, hint at such acts. References to deflowering the divine brides in temple logs. Virgins were not just raped, some were impregnated, their children claimed as God-born and raised as future priests, perpetuating the cycle. Bodies of resistors were found in the Nile, disguised as accidents or offerings to Sobek, the crocodile god. Nefertari's body bore scars, bruises hidden under robes, a broken spirit. The priest's hypocrisy peaked, preaching purity by day, indulging in orgies by night, using temple funds for concubines disguised as virgins. The most horrific detail, some virgins, post-abuse, were sacrificed in purification fires, their ashes scattered to appease angered gods. Tate, Nefertari escaped death but was marked forever, her innocence stolen in the name of false divinity. This wasn't just one temple or one era, it was systemic across ancient Egypt. From the Old Kingdom pyramids to the Ptolemaic period, evidence mounts. In Memphis, temples of Ptah had sacred consorts, women forced into sexual servitude. At Heliopolis, sun priests invoked Ra's life-giving seed to justify assaults. Archaeological finds support this. Graffiti in temple ruins depicting explicit acts between priests and attendants, ostraca, pottery shards with complaints from virgins buried to avoid detection. Herodotus, the Greek historian visiting in the 5th century BCE, wrote of temple prostitutes in Thebes. Though he romanticized it, reality was coercion, not choice. The system thrived on power structures. Pharaohs, aware or complicit, turned blind eyes for priestly support. Noble families, gaining status from dedicating daughters, ignored rumors. Virgins, sworn to secrecy under threat of eternal damnation, suffered in silence. This extended to other cults. Hathor's temples and Dendera involved ecstatic dances leading to exploitation. Bastet's cat worship sites hid similar horrors. Even in later periods, under Greek and Roman influence, the practice persisted, morphing into state-sanctioned brothels within temples. Estimates from fragmented records suggest thousands of women affected over centuries, a dark thread in Egypt's tapestry of grandeur. We must confront this. Power unchecked breeds monstrosity, especially when cloaked in divinity. The Egyptian priests' acts were not cultural norms to excuse. They were abuses of trust, violations of humanity. Religion, meant to uplift, became a tool for oppression, preying on the vulnerable. Today, this echoes in modern scandals. Clergy abuses in churches, gurus exploiting followers. The lesson is clear: question authority, protect the innocent, and demand accountability. No God worth worshipping would condone such evil. Stand against hypocrisy. Let history teach us to build societies where purity is respected, not exploited. These virgin stories demand we fight for justice, ensuring no one hides behind sacred veils to commit unholy acts. If this tale of ancient betrayal chilled you, subscribe and hit the bell for more uncovers of history's darkest secrets. Next time, we dive into the forbidden rites of Roman emperors, blood, lust, and power. You won't want to miss it. Comment below what historical horror you want exposed next.